So this is the trail leading to John Clark's gravesite. And I don't know if this will pick up on the camera, but can you see the purplish looking sand and rock in this area? This is highly suggestive of the Chin-Lee formation, which is part of the layering of the sand and rock that makes up this area. But the thing about the Chin-Lee is that is the area where the petrified rock is usually found. And all this ground here is sort of purplish, so there's probably remnants of trees buried within here, or even some on the surface. If you are a careful observer, you might see some. Desert holly, got that one. Now I assume this is an okay trail. You see that culvert there? The lady who wrote the book, her last name was Swan, who really has an excellent guide to this area. Recommended parking over where I parked and then coming through the culvert to cross the road. Gee, this is a little sketchy, isn't it? I may have to go back that way. The best way to go down these things is like a mule. What I learned about mules is they always put all 4 feet on the ground as they're moving around. And in that way, they can maintain their balance on some pretty tricky areas. So there's that culvert. I'll explore that on the way back. But we have to pay a tribute to old John Clark. Gee, where is the thing? Let's see, they're over there. I assume this will lead to it. There's the culvert. We'll check it out on the way back. If not, we'll try to ascend that hill. Ah, there it is. And there we were up on the hill with the sign up there. Now we're looking into the sun here, so I'll have to pay tribute on the other side. So this is the story of John J. Clark. He was a Canadian by birth, born in 1844. He enlisted in Company F of the New York Infantry in 1862 during the Civil War. Unfortunately, he was wounded in the hand and also had typhoid fever and was given a medical discharge on March the 6th, 1863. By that time, Private Clark had been promoted to sergeant. He then went west after the war like many other people and ended up in California. On a trip from Bakersfield, California to Salt Lake City, Utah, he decided to take his buck wagon and lone horse and travel the old Arrowhead Trail, which runs right near this area. It is believed that Mr. Clark did not carry sufficient water to make it across the desert in the summertime, and that he sort of quit near this area, tied his horse to the rear of the wagon, and I guess from footprints it looked as though he had made circles around the area looking for a spring. When he couldn't find any water, he sort of gave up, and he was found under his wagon, where he probably went to get some shade and be out of the sun. His horse was found dead, tied up to the buckboard near him. It's presumed that he was waiting for someone else to come along the trail. However, no one came until June 30th, 1915, where they found his body. At that time, Mr. Clark was 71 years old. Now, this is not the original marker as you could imagine. What had happened, the original cross or marker became a victim of vandalism, as is often done by people who just don't have any respect either for veterans or for monuments. So the cross was stolen. The good people of Overton put up another cross, and that was vandalized. And finally they came out here and they put up this concrete and brick structure, which has been here ever since. Of course, now it's under the control of the state park, and doing any vandalism to this will lead to a hefty fine and maybe some jail time. But since you have to walk down here from these hills over here, there aren't that many people who come down into this area. So anyway, that is the story of Sergeant John Clark. Now, it's known that if you continue down this particular valley straight in front of me for about 5 miles or so, you'll run into what is the only true water source in this valley, and that's called Charlie Spring. The problem with Clark is, number one, he didn't know where Charlie Spring was. And with the overgrowth, there was no trail saying Charlie Spring is down this way. So he probably never ventured far enough down into that area to encounter the spring, at which time he could have had plenty of water, brought some back for the horse, and then gotten out of here and over to Overton. So thanks to the good people of Overton for reestablishing the monument of John C. Clark. And remember, some words of wisdom, especially in the summertime, but even in the wintertime like now. Take plenty of water with you when you go out into the desert. because it takes very little time for you to become dehydrated. Now, the other thing is, you might ask, why did Clark come this way? As I said before, this was part of the old Arrowhead Highway, which was established sometime between 1912 and 15, and then even longer, depending on what city or county or state was interested in developing the road. But this part had been done. So this was the route to get to Salt Lake City, where he was going. And in fact, if you continue to the east, you will run into the town of St. Thomas, which was there, which was also part of that trail. And he could have had plenty of water, food, because they had a thriving community there at that time. And then he would have gone to Overton along the Virgin River and then on to Salt Lake City. But unfortunately, he couldn't make it. It's interesting that that Arrowhead Trail wasn't a purely government program in itself, but some rich people who owned touring cars at that time formed a club to develop a way to get around the desert, especially from Los Angeles to Salt Lake City. And the work of those people eventually became the AAA. So that is the rest of the story.